Welcome to Which Side Do You Want, where we talk all things tennis. I'm your co-host, Ruffin Thornton, and I'll be joined by my good friend, James Skinner.
Unlike most tennis podcasts, we cover hot topics, from the lawns to the concrete, from the pros to the park, and all things in between. Welcome to Which Side Do You Want?
All right, welcome back, tennis and racket sport fans, to our podcast. We're here again, back in the comfortable confines of Another Wave Media here in North Chesterfield, Virginia. So, Coach, going on? How you doing?
I'm doing all right, Ruffin. How you doing, man?
Doing pretty good.
Long time no see.
Well, at least the Easter break.
Or short time.
Yeah. So, did you do anything over the Easter break?
Not really.
No.
We did still doing little college trips with my daughter.
The college trips.
Yes. And it's that time.
Yeah.
But other than that, we're just taking it easy at home.
Cool. Time, nothing like relaxing at home after a busy preparation week of looking for schools. I got you. Yeah. My journey is about the end, though. As you see, I'm wearing my West Virginia blue and yellow.
Mountaineers.
It's the Mountaineers. My Mountaineer is about to finish her journey. So congratulations to her.
Yes.
With a master's degree. So that's going to be really good. We were up there during the week of Easter and got a chance to see her do her thesis. So that's congrats to her. But so how's the team doing?
The team we're 3-4 right now.
Right.
But I think we have probably played the toughest part of our season. We'll meet some of them again, but for the most part. So I'm looking at a better than 500 team.
Good. Hey,
yeah, better than 500 team. But that's I think we're balanced out at midway down. We're balanced.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's about the same. It's just that upper level that they're secluded club up on the top.
Yeah,
those teams
it's lonely at the top.
They're very experienced. Yeah, and they so we have our work cut out for us. But it's a learning process, and you play teams like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what the expectation for you is if you want to be competitive. You gotta put in as much time as they put in.
Absolutely,
take it seriously and want to do well and so I'm pleased with what I've seen based on their skill level and where they came into the game. I had a couple players who were only playing for about a year, and they're battling, doing their best.
Hey, sometimes that's all you can ask for.
That's all you can ask. Mm-hmm.
I got the same thing on my side. Even though I'm not the coach, I'm coaching, 4 players from one team, both men's and women's, and or girls and boys, and they've from what I've seen, because we only really practice on the weekends. From what I've seen, they've improved. All of the players that have decided to come out to work on their game on the weekends, warm weather, cold weather, they've shown, and I guess they're starting to believe that, hey, the more that you practice, the better you get. Especially the young man that actually just started, just like you were saying, you have a couple of players that just started. Even though he doesn't have, quote unquote, the requisite skill set, he's getting wins.
Right.
And I keep telling him, no matter what, just keep the ball in play. If you can do that, and if you can get the ball in the court one more time, more so than your opponent, you're more likely going to be successful.
Exactly.
So, and that's all we can ask for our young players to get
simplify.
Playing.
Simplify it to them, and then they'll, like you said, they keep playing it. Tennis rewards your diligence.
Yeah.
So the more you play, the better you'll get.
Absolutely.
You just gotta want it. You want to get out there, and if you want to, you will be successful.
Yeah.
It's a great game.
And that's what we see at the pro level.
Exactly.
So let's talk about what's happening in tennis this week. First of all, we got to say on the women's side, congratulations to those winners of this last week's Fed Cup. I'm sorry, I keep saying Fed Cup. Billie Jean King Cup.
Billie Jean King. BJK.
I focused my time on the women's, the U.S. women's team and of Jessica Pegula and Coco Gauff. I saw them unfortunately beat the brakes off of Austria.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know why I'm saying unfortunately. I was rooting for those outcomes.
And
the U.S. team was clearly stronger than Austria. And then I saw a little bit of the Canadian match against. They were playing. I was just watching it. Who was it? They were just playing, and I just saw it. Anyway, Layla Fernandez pulled out since she doesn't have her ride or die, and Bianca Andreescu with the injury. We hope that she gets back on the court as soon as possible.
Yes.
But she pulled it out.
Awesome.
Canada pulled it out 3-2 over their opponent. I can't think of it, but I guess I'm getting open. But I'm getting older. But anyway,
aren't we all?
Yeah. So let's talk about some of the events that are going on this week. So this week we've got on the men's side, we've got the Barcelona Open, where it's being played in Barcelona, Spain.
Mm-hmm.
Where the defending champion is our next big player, Carlos Alcaraz.
I'm telling you.
He's going to
the teen wonder,
and the next teen wonder, or soon, just recently got out of the teens for the BMW Open, being played in Munich, Germany. Holger Rune is the defending champion. So those two, we're going to be looking forward to seeing those two play for a number of years.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And then there's a new event in Bosnia and Herzegovina. I'm not going to butcher this one. This is SRPSKA Open.
Okay.
It's a new event. At least I didn't see it last year. So that's a new event. So those are three main events on the men's side. On the women's side, you've got the good old Porsche Tennis Grand Prix being played in Stuttgart, Germany, where Iga Swiatek is the defending champion. So, this is where she gets her momentum for the rest of the season from last year. So,
exactly.
That's where that unstoppable force of her game got its real legs last year after Ash Barty retired. So
she's clay is her thing,
right?
She plays well on the surface,
and so it's kind of interesting that the men have 3 events and the women have 1 event. Where you see that disparity, and it's usually the other way around, where the women have more events than the men. But that leads to a big subject. In this country, there's an assault on women's rights, and it's been brought to our attention that may be the same thing on the in the women's tennis side when it comes to pay disparities.
Yes.
For instance, so we have 4 levels of tennis, main tennis at the tour level. We've got obviously the Grand Slams.
That's the top.
Then below that, we have the Masters 1000 series, or the WTA 1000 level events. Then you have both the ATP and the WTA have 500 level events, and then 250 events, and then you have the smaller tournaments that are satellite tournaments.
Right. And just for everybody, the non-tennis nerds out there, when Ruffin refers to an event as a 1,000 event or 1,500 event, that just tells you the points that you will earn,
right?
If you're WTA or your ATP ranking, and you get, when you win that event, you get those points,
right, or
you get a percentage of those points depending on where you finish up in the event. And so,
but so when it comes to pay disparity, there is none really at the Grand Slams, but we'll talk about this a little bit later in this episode. There may be a work for pay disparity, but we'll talk about it in a second. Yes. But
we're about to open that one up.
Yeah. But when you think about it, how do these events get their pay? Well, a lot of times, you can see the total purse. The purse is just nothing more than the amount of prize money that's being given for the entire event for those players that are competing. And that's among singles winners, doubles winners, mixed doubles if they have it. That's the entire purse. So to give you an example, so we just finished the Sunshine Double, American Hardcourt season. And both Indian Wells and Miami paid all of the players that played in all of the events the same amount.
Right. $8,800,000.
$1,000.
Right.
And I would take that. Well, that was the total purse.
That's the total purse.
Right. So
yeah.
And to lose in the first round, you're still making 18,000. I'll take that. Anyway.
Yeah.
But how does the pay difference be? How does that pay difference go from tournament to tournament? That's what I'd like to talk about.
Yeah, and I think when the first question, just to come back to the first question you asked, as far as how do these tournaments make this money? I think you answered your question with your statement when you raffled off the name of these events. The the Copa Oster, the Qatar, the Meridia Open, the Alberto. These are corporate names, people. These are corporate
that are behind those.
That are behind it. They're paying the money. These sponsors, they're the ones who are putting up the money.
Right.
For now, people think, it just comes from the people paying money for the tickets. That's part of it, but that is a small
part of it. Yeah. They put up big dollars.
Yeah, exactly. Usually that money, the ticket seat money, goes to paying for the vendors, the people, and all other little services and stuff they do. Usually that's what that takes care of.
Right.
But the big money comes from the corporate sponsors. And so when we watch these tournaments and you see and you look around that event and you see all of the names of Exxon and, and all of these places, Chase Bank, and those are the people who are putting up the money.
Right. Like on the women's side, Porsche Grand Prix.
Toyotas, and all of these.
Or on the men's side, the BMW Open.
Right.
Obviously, Porsche and BMW are the main sponsors, so they're putting up most of the funds for the purse. Gotcha.
Exactly. And so,
but how come there's such a big disparity? That's what I'd like to talk about.
Right.
For instance, so in this week's tournaments, we have the Barcelona Open. Again, this is ATP 500 level event. The total purse. Now, let's just point this out. There are 48 draws, 48 players in the draw. The total purse is 2.8 million euro.
Okay.
Whereas another 500 level event on the women's side, the Porsche Tennis Grand Prix. Now, granted, 32 draws. Gotcha. So it's a smaller draw. But the difference is 780,000 euro total purse. That's a huge difference. You think about it. If every player that played in those events on the men's side got a portion of that purse, they would get just shy of 60,000 euro to play in that event on the men's side. But on the flip side, on the WTA version, for that same event, 500 level, they're only going to get just shy of 25,000 euro. That's a big pay disparity. And that's what I'd like to just talk about right now, because on one, since you just mentioned it, the sponsors have a lot to do with each tournament, but there's some other topics or other avenues that we could discuss. So let me just pose it to you like this: which side would you want to talk about first, the men's side or the women's side?
Well, I'm going to take the women's side on this one, and and I'm just going to put it out there: the women, even though they're doing the top, and we got to understand before I say this, there's a tier, okay? And for the top players, the very top players, they're doing okay.
Right.
But for the under 100 level, if you're under 100 in the world or 100, it's going to be tougher now, especially you can get in, if you're in the top 100, you'll get into the main draw of the Grand Slams, because you made that qualifying cutoff number. But for the other tournaments, there's no guarantee. You have to get in where you can fit in.
Right.
And so those are going to still be reserved for the top even higher. And so for the women, the money and the pay drops down. The lower that number and that tournament goes, that pay drops down.
Yeah.
However, on the men's side, you can still pretty much, if you stay within the top 100, and you play a certain amount of 500 or 250 events, the pay is, and if you're winning, if you're consistently, you don't have to win every tournament,
Right.
but if you're getting into the, into
Fourth
the
round,
later
third
rounds,
round,
yes, these tournaments, then you are earning a very good living
Right.
as a tennis player. I mean, you're doing okay.
Yeah.
You're able to pay your bills and pay for your team,
Right.
and pay for all those other things that you're responsible for, and still have some money in your pocket to.
Sure.
And now, but for women at that level, it's a different story. The women at that lower level, even though they're top players and they're playing, the money dispersed through those smaller tournaments is just not the same.
Yeah.
And they are struggling, even if they're winning.
Oh, yeah.
Matches, they're struggling because the prize money is not all there is. The prize money only takes you so far.
Sure.
It's the endorsement dollars. That's the money that's going to, and for a lot of these tournaments, the corporate dollar just doesn't go as deep for the women as it does.
No, and it never really has. And that's a good point that you talk about the endorsement money, because the endorsements are based on you've mentioned this before, on your marketability. Okay.
Yep.
If you're not marketable, they're not going to really endorse you.
No.
So that means you have to have a large following, whether it be social media, whether it be just because you're as popular, because you're doing well, whatever the case may be. So how do you get those endorsements? That's what we should talk about. And not only how do you get those endorsements, why would you as a player, for instance, it's no joke. It's obvious that Serena and Roger have been the top players of their sport over the last 2 decades. Yep. But I guarantee you there's a big disparity in what Roger has been able to get in endorsement money versus what Serena has gotten in endorsements. And we could talk about some of the other aspects that are not strictly on your popularity, because obviously if they're considered GOATs in the sport, they're obviously pretty popular. So But what do you have to say about that?
I would agree with you. Serena Williams, over prize money alone.
Right.
Prize money alone, folks, she had made, I think, 95 million over her career. But you double that in endorsements.
Right.
That's what now, Roger Federer made even more.
Oh, of course.
His he made less, but the thing is his prize money is almost comparable to his endorsement money dwarfs hers.
Right.
That's the thing. And Serena's doing pretty doggone good
right.
as far as the women are concerned. She is like that, that upper tier.
A number of years, she was the highest paid female athlete in the world.
Yep.
That title was held by Maria Sharapova, not because she was winning tournaments, but because she was popular. Currently, it's being held by Naomi Osaka. And she hadn't really swung the racket that much. She's been off the tour, but she's got a big following. She's very popular. So,
well, remember when we talked about endorsements, that segment when we did that podcast. I mean, part of it is where you're from. If you're from a country that is heavy populated, and you're popular. Well, your brand is going to sell out there. Her brand in Japan is
huge,
ridiculous. I mean, she's just because of who she is and being Japanese background, and just she's going to do in Japan. She can do no wrong, And as far as the endorsements and money is concerned,
But let's talk just again. Let's keep talking about the pay,
the
discrepancy from the tournament side.
Well. And when you said that, and that just made me think about the old argument that a lot of people made as to why men earn more than women. And the old argument, and you might want to jump on this because you and I have had this discussion in the past, but the old argument, most men would say, well, most of the men's tournaments, we play the best of 5 sets. Now, there's a caveat to that now, folks.
And that was I'm just saying, primarily in the Grand Slams.
Right. And it is still only in the Grand Slams.
Right.
But they still hold on to that argument. A lot of male players will say, well, why do women at the US Open and at Wimbledon and at the French Open and Australian Open, why do they earn the same as men? Because the men play the best of 5 sets, the women play best of 3 sets.
You know what? That's a good point. To win the tournament on the men's side in the Grand Slams, you could potentially play 35 sets.
That's true.
On the women's side, however, you could potentially play 14 sets. That's not really fair. I'm not 14, 21 sets.
21 sets, got you.
Yeah, but still, that's really not fair from a pay point per set perspective.
Right.
But
the women would tell you, and people would tell you that you could almost agree with that argument if you were being paid by the hour or you were paid by but you're not.
Sure.
You're paid by those corporations on the wall and stuff. They want to see your exposure and what gives you that television, all of those things. And so the women, as far as the women are concerned, they do that. So if they do that, if they put the butts in the seats, if they get the people to watch the television, if those corporations see those numbers of people watching that event and seeing their logo and seeing their commercials and stuff come on and everything, then whether they play the best of 5 sets or the best of 1, if they play the pro set, to them it's worth it. Okay, that exposure is worth it. And then it justifies paying these women the same amount of money. That's, the argument. And I will always say that, to me, that's a valid argument. That's a valid argument. You could play, and also too, you could also say, and we've had this discussion in the past, but even men, there's no guarantee you're going to play best of 5 sets.
No.
Majority of those sets are 3 sets.
Right.
Even in the best of 5, you get a lot of straight sets or 4 at the most.
Yeah, but again, the real argument is not more or less how many sets you actually play. It's the potential. So and let me make sure that everyone is clear. I am not against women getting equal pay, because that's not true. I believe everybody should get the same amount of money. But my biggest thing is, from when it comes to the Grand Slams and the potential to play 35 versus 21, man, that's a huge difference. Why should I get paid the same as someone else? Or why am I not getting more than someone else when they're only playing a maximum of 21 sets? In fact, Marat Safin won a slam back in the early 2000s. He won the Australian Open, and he played, I think, 4 or 5 setters to win that tournament. He certainly would have been deserving of more pay than his counterpart that would have won it on the women's side. But again, I'm not the one, and the slam's already determined before you even step out there that everybody's going to get the same amount of pay. That's great.
As of 2007, they made it to across the board.
Across the board, all the slams get the same pay, which is great, and I'm glad for it. But to your argument on the endorsement of putting butts in seats, well, who's to say that women are followed more? Now, this is a male-dominated sports area.
Ooh.
I know. It's
okay, bro.
People are going to say, well, who's the most popular tennis player? Because they're the ones that are actually putting butts in seats. Is it people on the women's side? Is it people on the men's side? I don't know. I mean, we know because we are fans of both men's and women's. We watch it just as much women's tennis as we do men's tennis. But at the end of the day, can you name, let's say, 10 of the top 20 on the women's side versus 10 of the top 20 on the men's side? Don't know.
Well, I think if you follow the game, you can, Ruffin. I mean, and I don't know. I think for the women would tell you that they pretty much, think about this. At the height of her career, Serena Williams, could she sell out a stadium?
Sure.
Any stadium in the world. If she's in the finals, guaranteed the sales go up. That time, the airtime goes up, the coverage everything goes up. She was just that was her. And so I would say for her, players of her and her stature, and there have been several, they can make a good argument. They don't care who you put up against them. But, even I would even say Federer and Serena at one point, they're the numbers of people who will watch them play in a tournament, or especially in the finals. I don't think there was too much airspace between them.
Sure. I can agree with that. But, on the flip side Roger has a Nadal. Who does Serena have? Who did Serena have that she could?
Well, see, she had a collection. She had a collection, of players that through the years, because her career was so long. I mean, Federer's career was long too, but But her career was long, and there was a collection of players. I'll never forget. I had a U.S. Open program when she and Venus. This was from '97.
Right.
I don't think Serena played in. I mean, maybe '90 U.S. Open. It might have been '98. But
Right.
Venus and Serena there, and I remember it was like 2000. I picked it up and found it, and it was like 2000. It was like 2016 or 17. And I looked at the two draw sheets, right? The only two players that was still there from 1997 or 98 was Venus and Serena.
Right.
Everyone else was gone, had been out of the game. And so they played a collection of players. There were various young players and who would come up and be a rival for a while, and then they drop off. I mean, so that you can't hold against them.
No, not trying
longevity
to,
and that being able to play at that high level.
If we're talking about this popularity of the sport and following the player, which again puts butts in seats, which makes those corporate dollars pay you more versus someone else. You got to think, okay, there needs to be a rivalry. Let's go back to the 90s. What did we see on the men's side? We saw Pete Sampras versus Andre Agassi. On the women's side, you didn't really have that. You had Steffi who dominated, but the beginning, she came in at the end of the Martina Chris Everett rivalry,
which was a serious
rivalry from the 80s and actually from the 70s and 80s. And at the end of the 90s, you had Monica Seles, or the middle of the 90s.
And Steffi Graf.
But again, those two players, as great as they were, didn't quite have the same marketability that Steffi did. And certainly not as great in this country as an Andre Agassi and a Pete Sampras did because of what they did. Number one, they were both winning Grand Slams at the same time. Andre with the images, everything, and Pete just going to work, and doing his job on the court. But on the same side, you didn't necessarily have that on the women's side. And again, that leads into this pay disparity that we're talking about because at the end of the day, again, this week, we've got 2 500 level events. Yet the men's, which is a larger draw, the men's, The men's Barcelona Open, 48 person draw, 2.8 million lira in purse. The only tournament on the women's side, 500 event, Porsche Grand Prix. Okay, you mean to tell me that those two tournaments don't have enough money behind them that both tournaments should have equal pay? Come on now.
Yeah, you're right. And I think the corporate sponsors will pay as much as they can get away with paying.
Sure.
They don't want to pay $1 gajillion.
Right.
They're still in business to make money.
Yeah.
And this helps them to make money. But if they feel like, they're going to always try to get the max for the minimum. And unfortunately for women on the WTA side, there's more of that trying to get the max for the minimum from there. And I just don't think a lot of these big tournaments would automatically be amenable to making equal pay. They were the slams were basically forced to do it. Yeah. I mean, they came around, but I mean, Wimbledon held out for the longest time.
Right.
And it was just, justifying that for a lot of these people, corporate CEOs and stuff who are mostly male men, they did not value what the women brought to the table, even though they were making money for them hand over fist. It's still for them, as far as who they're going to put those big bucks into, they still felt like putting it in the male, in a men's tournament, it's going to give them a higher profile.
Sure.
It's going to be a bigger, and that's one of those issues that just it's sports, but it's also bigger than sports. You have it across the board in other areas and venues, and like you opened up our segment with, which I thought was appropriate, is that this is something that's going on. We are faced with this now, with women, speaking out for equality. And this is just sort of like a small microcosm of a bigger issue.
Absolutely, and that's the thing. It's really unfair. Again, we're still dominated in the patriarchal society, and we see that even in our sports, especially in this sport.
Yeah,
there's no real reason other than the size of the draw, to see that big disparity. Like I said, like I said earlier, 60,000 or 60,000 per person for the purse in Barcelona versus 25, that's half. That really doesn't, that's not really fair. And we need to work on that as a society overall. But, at the end of the day, I'm still going to watch the sport, whether it's men's or women's. I'm going to follow my favorite players.
Without a doubt. When we go to the tournament, that's you and I both, and all of our friends, we go. We don't go, I'm just going to see the men play.
Right.
No, you're going to waste.
Not unless
you're going to miss out on some great tournament.
In fact, that's a good point. So the City Open, which was the tournament in DC, it used to be an only men's version. But guess what? It's gotten a larger following now that they added the women's side to it.
Yep. And they turned that's a 250, isn't it? Is it a 250?
I think it is a 250 event now.
Because City is 500.
Right.
So, but that's still good because you're going to get a high quality player coming in there. And soon, I'm sure at some point it will be a 500 event.
Right. And it should. I mean,
it enhanced the tournament.
Rock Creek Park is a great venue up there in Cindy. It's hot, but it's
it's DC.
It's DC in the summertime. But at the end of the day, it's part of that. What do you call it? The U.S. Open series that leads into the U.S. Open. So but I think this has been a good topic. We'd like to ask more. In fact, for our fans that are following us, like to get your opinion on what you think are some of the problems with pay inequity in the sport of tennis. Why are women not getting so many dollars as much as the men's tournaments are? So that would be something that we could really talk about.
Definitely like the women to speak up and contact us too.
Yes, definitely. Please tell us what you think.
Yeah, because to me, our sport, that's part of what makes our sport great is that there is almost, as far as the following and as far as the skill level and play, the women are up there. There is no, they're not, they should, for the most part, it's been the most lucrative of sports. Oh, yeah. Partially because tennis is a worldwide sport. That helps. Yeah. But also, too, that, women are out there. They've been out in the on the front end of this thing. Like, you did a very good segment a while back when you talked about the first 9 ladies who signed that contract. And if y'all listen, go and find that podcast. Ruffin did an outstanding job of bringing that the history of women's tennis in the WTA. And so but that's been a constant battle. They cannot rest. No. It's always something,
an uphill fight.
From Billie Jean King, and she inspired others, and it came down to Venus Williams having to take a stand, which was instrumental in getting Wimbledon to change their policy. And so it's we look at it and we look at these issues that we would think are settled.
Right. But they're not.
They're not. And and then too, some people will come in and say, well, the corporations, it's their money and they get to spend it the way they want to. Right. Sure, that is true. But also still we want to see the quality of tennis that's out there. And if you deny women access to the game as anyone else, then we get denied. We don't get to see the best play. We don't get to see these women have the ability to develop and become even better. And it hurts the game.
It does. It really does. So hopefully we'll get that fixed with a lot of other things that are going on in our society. So do you got anything for our segment on this week in tennis?
The one thing, this week I want to congratulate Francis Tiafoe for his victory in Houston.
In Houston,
And his ATP got his 250 points. Now, was it the strongest field ever in Houston?
Of course not.
Not really. But that's not Tiafoe's fault.
No.
He still had to go out there and deliver and play and play his best. And I'm happy for him to get that title. I'd like to see him do more. I'm hoping that this will inspire. Now, unfortunately, he pulled out a few European events, but he has to get himself together before it comes over to Europe, and it's going to be exciting to see him. I'm to see him to come and play on the clay in Europe, and he is, to me, and a lot of people. Please comment and let us know how you feel. I just think that him playing well is really good for the sport.
Oh, sure. Because he's gonna bring people. He's gonna be a channel turner.
Yes,
he's gonna bring people to watch the sport. You're like, who
Yeah.
Francis Tiafo. Let me see who this guy is. Yeah.
Wearing with the flamboyant outfit.
Right. Oh, good
outfits
Lord.
the only he can wear.
And the only
he's the only one that can pull those outfits up.
I'm like, oh, dude.
But yeah, man, it's great to be young.
Right.
Young and a six-pack.
Six-pack. Yeah.
But yeah, some of that stuff is off.
Some of that stuff was showing them arms. No. If you got some Hogaroon arms, if you got some Yannick Sinner arms, that is not going to work.
Yeah, no, it's not going to work, man. Sinner, he's one of the skinnies. But anyway, hats off to him. That was in an American winning an American tournament on clay.
That's right. On clay.
And clay is a good surface for him. I think he performs well. The big spin and everything. And so much success for him going into Europe. Much success to all the Americans going over to Europe. All
I hope they
men
do
and the
well.
women. Yeah, like to see a few more titles come off of the dirt. It's gonna be tough, but I think we get some people do it. Taylor Fritz had a tough run. Had a good run in Italy, and came close to getting through that one. But got to the semis. And I was trying to think when he was playing, and I was like, he got in the semis, and I was trying to think who was the last American
to at least get to the semis.
I can't even. I need to go back and check. Can you think of anybody?
Roddick may have gotten to one. Certainly, Big John with his big serve and volley is going to be effective on any surface, especially.
Did he get to how far did he get? And I was thinking because this was Monte Carlo.
Right.
I'm trying to think. The last time I remember an American getting that far, I was trying to think. Did Jim Courier get that far? I mean, he was probably one of our premier dirt ballers.
He was a dirt baller. Dre, obviously.
Agassi.
We're talking about Andre Agassi.
I know Agassi got to that French, and he and Jim Courier. Well, Jim Courier is the last American, right, to hold up the French.
No.
What American won it?
It was Dre.
No, since Courier.
Oh, Andre, because he didn't. So it was. Andre got to the Grand Slam first.
Twice and lost. That's right.
He lost twice. And then when he was actually favored, he was losing, and they had the famous rain delay. And then he came back and
That's right, because he played against the other Medvedev.
Right, the other Medvedev, who he was just on that day. And the conditions were nice and cold, so that they really
so he is the last. He's the last.
Yeah, he's the
won
last
French
one to win the American Friendship.
And most people watching this weren't even born. If you're 20 in your 20s, you weren't even around then. So that lets you know how long it's been. So we're definitely just a side on that, about Americans on clay. Taylor Fritz, somebody made a comment, and I forgot who it was, made a comment about Americans on clay, and that they were like awkward and they couldn't play. And so
I could see that.
Taylor Fritz, after he won his match to get into the semifinals, he put on the, you signed the lens. Yeah, he signed USA, clay, and he put big question marks.
Big question mark.
That's
clay,
good.
I know.
We need that. We need Americans up there just saying, hey, we can play on this dirt now too. We're ready to rock and roll. So
I think so.
See how they do.
I think my boy Sebastian Corder can do some damage.
He can play on clay
because he's already gotten to the quarters at least.
This is a surface made for him, I think. And we like to see. I want to see him get out there and battle.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's enough time for this podcast. Again, thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for listening. Again, continue to hit us up on Instagram. Hit the like button down at the bottom. Right. Hit the subscribe button over here. Also, if you have any comments, hit us up on email, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and hopefully you've got some comments that you like, and we'll be able to respond to them. So thanks again for following us.
Yep, please.
So, James, you got any more comments?
Not at all. Just, hey, it's that time of year. I'm telling you, for tennis nerds, this is it. This is the time. So
we're coming out of our cocoon. So hey,
that's right. The
it's
weather's
time
getting
to get
warm.
out there.
That's right. And the tennis is popping. So let's make it happen.
That's all it makes.
Right.
That's all it takes. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But anyway,
that too.
All right, so we'll see you next time, tennis fans. And again, like we always say, James,
go and play some tennis. That's right.